Okay, good morning to my 29 subscribers and anybody else who watches this video. Okay, so we're going back to the beginning to My Journey to Heaven, Marvin J. Bestesmen with Lorilee Craker. Okay, we're going to read chapter 1's A 1 in a Million Case. I had never heard of insulinoma before I was diagnosed with it. As diseases go, this wasn't one of the famous ones that cause people to cluck their tongues, grimace, or shake their heads in sympathy. When I told people I had insulinoma, they looked at me like they didn't know what I was talking about, which they didn't. But have it I did, and that's what led me to the University of Michigan Medical Center in Ann Arbor, Michigan in April of 2006. It all started in 2003, 3 years before my diagnosis with this strange illness. Ruth and I were in Florida for a few months, basking in the sun and trying to beat each other at golf. At the time, I could still beat her, but barely. It was there I had my first episode. Apparently, I have no memory of this. One night, we were sitting around the condo, and suddenly, I just zoned out. According to Ruth, I just stared into space for an hour, not knowing who she was, completely disoriented and confused, and a little bit agitated. One bonus of having a nurse for a wife is that she can often tell what's wrong with me, or at least she knows what to do to help the situation. She thought it seemed like a case of low blood sugar, and she shoved a bit of chocolate in my mouth to get my blood sugar evened out. Ruth told me I couldn't even shut my own mouth to chew it. That's how out to lunch I was. She shut my mouth for me, something she probably wishes she could have done a long time ago. Ruth took me to the ER for tests the next day, and they couldn't find anything wrong. For the next 3 years, I was fine. No more episodes to speak of. Since I hadn't even remembered what happened, I didn't think much about it. Ruth, though being a nurse, and my wife both tucked it away in the back of her mind, wondering if it would ever happen again and why it happened in the first place. We were vacationing up north in Boyne Mountain, Michigan, with 2 of our grandchildren when I had another spell. It was the same kind of thing as in Florida. I woke up sometime in the night, dazed and incoherent, and had no idea who Ruth was or where I was. When Ruth woke up, she saw that I had pulled my legs up in the fetal position, and I was staring at her without really seeing her. I moaned and moaned, but didn't appear to have any pain. Ruth got me up to go to the bathroom, and she had to hold me up the whole way because I was so shaky. She made me eat some more chocolate, but somehow kept me quiet. Our granddaughter was sleeping in the same hotel room, and she didn't want to scare her. The next morning, I felt perfectly fine, once again, and had no memory of anything happening the night before. We took the kids to the water park, went out for lunch, and drove home to Grand Rapids, where it happened again. I had fallen asleep on the couch, and when I woke up once more, I didn't know where I was or who Ruth was. According to Ruth, I was acting anxious and a bit crazy, my heart racing and my limbs shaking. I was moaning again and repeatedly beating the couch cushions. This time, she was freaking out, too. On the inside, I began crawling around on the floor, trying to get out of the condo, trying to get away from poor Ruth. She was grabbing me by the belt, attempting to physically slow me down so I couldn't get out. She finally managed to lock the doors and dial 911. Nurse or no nurse, my wife was definitely alarmed, but her training helped her stay calm and take command of the situation. "What's he doing?" the 911 dispatcher asked her. "He's crawling around on the floor and he has no idea who I am." The ambulance got there about 5 minutes later, loaded me up, and took me to Spectrum Health Hospital in downtown Grand Rapids. I was at Spectrum for 10 days, where I was poked and prodded within an inch of my life. Finally, they diagnosed me with insulinoma, a rare tumor of the pancreas that shows itself as being the exact opposite of diabetes. My pancreas was generating so much insulin, it was eating all the sugar in my body, hence the strange spells. I had a blood sugar level of 31, which is apparently very bad news. I had the dubious honor of being the first case of insulinoma they had ever diagnosed at this hospital, one of the top hospitals in the United States. Literally less than 1 in 1 million people are diagnosed with it each year. Around 200 cases are confirmed annually in the whole country. I was one of those lucky people. I think in one of my other videos I said that I had a dream with the number 31. Well, there's the number 31. Okay. The doctors at Spectrum recommended that I see a very specialized surgeon, either at the University of Michigan Medical Center in Ann Arbor or at the Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota. I had attended U of M for a short time in my college days. I even laced up skates and played hockey for them back in the day. I figured they already had some of my money, so I might as well give them more of it. I had to lie around and wait for a couple of days for a bed to be free in Ann Arbor. Ruth had left the hospital for the night and returned to our home, just 20 minutes away, so I was alone when abruptly I was told they had a bed ready at U of M. They packed me in an ambulance and off we sped to Ann Arbor, 2.5 hours away. Ruth decided to come the next day, and in the daylight, so she could find the place more easily. Once at U of M, I found out just how special I was. There at the hospital, doctors wouldn't come in my room one at a time. It always was 3 to 5 at a time. I guess my condition was so rare, the doctors were swarming me so they could inspect this extraordinary guy and his exceptional ailment. They had diagnosed me with insulinoma in Grand Rapids, but those doctors and the new ones in Ann Arbor still didn't know exactly where the tumor was located on my pancreas. This was crucial, because apparently a surgeon can't just go in and poke around someone's pancreas. Evidently, you can bleed terribly if they go in without knowing the exact spot they are trying to reach. But finding the right spot was turning out to be easier said than done. A young doctor at U of M hospital had a brilliant idea. She would pass a pediatric scope through me to find the exact location of my tumor. It worked. Thanks be to God. Ruth and I were so relieved that she had found the tumor. We didn't want to face the possibility of excessive bleeding in surgery. My surgery lasted for 5 hours. Dear Ruth had already been through such a roller coaster. Wondering what was wrong with me and knowing there was something way off, but not knowing what it could be. My episodes were stressful too, and then the drama of my being diagnosed with this extremely rare illness and the worry over whether or not the doctors would find the site of the tumor. She says God gave her deep comfort throughout those 5 hours as she waited to find out how things had gone on the operating table. As it turned out, things had gone well in terms of the doctor's goals for the surgery. They had found the site of the tumor, no problem, and my blood glucose went from a low 80 to 180, and quickly to a normal 115 once the tumor was out. The only problem was that I awakened in more pain than I thought was humanly possible. According to Ruth and our family and friends, plenty of loved ones stopped by to visit me after my surgery, but I didn't know and didn't care who was in the room. Phil Mickelson could have stopped by to get some golf tips from me, and I wouldn't have cared. A doctor whose sole job was to control people's pain spent 3 hours in my hospital room adjusting my pain medications. From about 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. that evening, she tried to get my pain under control. Whatever she was doing wasn't working one little bit, though it wasn't for lack of her trying. I'm not being a big baby when I tell you it was horrible. I've been told the reason why I hurt so bad is because the pancreas is behind the stomach, so the surgeon had to move my other organs around to get it. Plus, with a major surgery like this, the nerve endings are apparently severed, and then later they have to reattach and regenerate. At that point, my nerve endings hadn't regenerated yet, to say the least. Oh, and I almost forgot. The epidural stopped working during the surgery, and I had to have a new one midway through the procedure. Ouch. Doesn't begin to cover it. I would say so. Nurses like to say, how's your pain on a scale of 1 to 10? This was way beyond 10. I was in and out, dozing, coming to and from that fiery pain. I remember just jabbing my pain control button over and over, but nothing seemed to work. Ruth says that because it was my first night post-op, the nurses would have been in about every half an hour to check on me. Ruth wasn't familiar with Ann Arbor, and she wanted to get back to her hotel before it got too dark outside. She kissed me on the cheek, told me she loved me, and walked out of the room. She left at about 8 o'clock, just after the pain control doctor had given up for the night and left my room. I lay in my bed, miserable and terribly restless with the pain. There was a clock in my room, but I couldn't see it. And I didn't care what time it was either. That's why I didn't know exactly what time it was on the night of April 27, 2006. Or early in the morning of April 28th, when 2 strangers entered my room, and I instantly forgot about all the pain. Okay, so that's, what is that? That's 1 in a million case. That's My Journey to Heaven, Marvin J. Bestesmen, with Lorilee Craker. Okay, so that's all for this video. Thank you for watching.